Hey guys, welcome back. This is Lucid. We're going to be doing our pretender design for the nation Sceleria. I'm actually re-recording this, so my national overview I did when I was kind of like midway through the game in this Sceleria game you're going to watch. This is from far in the future. I'm way towards the end, and so after this episode I'm going to go back to being the person that didn't know how to play Sceleria quite as well. I'm playing Sceleria in another game, and I have a much better pretender design than I have in this game. So I basically am re-recording this whole episode, because pretender design is such an important part of picking your, or setting up your strategy for the nation. So anyway, hopefully after you watch this you will be as good of a Sceleria player as I am now. Okay, so without further ado, let's hop into it. So we went through the national overview. There's just a few things I want to cover real quick, an addendum as my future self. One thing is, and this is going to impact your pretender design, you do not need an awake expander. One thing every nation needs to think about, if you want to go scales as a nation, there's a few things you have to think about. One is, how are you going to efficiently expand with your base troops? The second is, usually the only time you want to go scales is if you have things that scale very well when you get lots of forts up. So can you get your good troops and your good mages and all your forts? And usually those are the situations in which you want to go scales. And you have this guy who, in my opinion, is one of the best mages in the game, though you could argue that maybe Utgard has a better mage. I don't really think so. I think this is maybe my favorite mage in the whole game. For a long time I was playing Lanka like Sceleria, and playing Sceleria, I realize now how much stronger they are than Lanka. I mean, they're a little bit more one-dimensional, but it's crazy. So anyway, they have really good scalable mages. They have troops that are very good at expanding. The other thing that you must have if you want to go scales, which is what, no surprise we're going to do, is you need to have anti-elite units. In other words, when you get rushed by somebody with quickness, blood surge giants, or some regenerating blood vengeance monsters, how are you going to kill them? And this is not an anti-elite, right? This guy, he's got good defense, he's got good protection, and he's got good equipment. So he's going to be pretty efficient expanding Vercindes, and he'll take pretty low losses given his cost. But he can't really kill elites. Now this guy kind of can, right? So our Lictor, they're a little soft, they're a little expensive, they kind of get a cool bless, which is nice. They have a patrol bonus, which is kind of cool. They have a magic axe, which does additional damage to undead. That part's not super interesting, but the fact they have a 10 damage magic axe is noteworthy. This guy can chomp through some pretty hefty dudes, and the attack skill on it is okay, 14, not bad. These guys do not fit that criteria. They're not really anti-elite. They're more in like the efficient expansion thing, unless you give them a good bless. So, this side of the roster doesn't scream anti-elite, and so you're in a bit of trouble. Fortunately, we have these gladiators, the Rotarius, and this guy, and these are so key because you can either spam them out and just have hordes of them to throw at super elite units, which they will almost always trade cost effectively with, or even better, you throw them in amongst skeletons and other higher defensive human troops, and they do so much damage. So I'm not going to spend a lot more time on the national overview, but this is such an important part. If you don't use these guys, then you can't go scales. And going scales is, in my opinion, just really the only way to play this nation. So, yeah, here we go. First, I'm going to show you the pretender I made. So in this particular game, we were playing against, there were quite a few nations, but one of them was M.A. Satis, and one of them was Abyssia, and yeah. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to show you the build that I did. I went up to 8 Dominion, and then I took basically all the best scales on an imprisoned pretender. I think I went something like this. And for my bless, I took major poison resistance because of foul vapor. I knew that was coming out with Satis, and we actually have a pretty good nation to do foul vapors ourselves. Because our troops, once we switch mostly to skeletons, are obviously immune to poison. Meanwhile, our mages will become immune to poison too if we cast, if we bless them. So this is kind of why I went for this build. Reinvigoration's nice in that your communions will be a little bit more efficient. However, I'm also in a game with Marignon and Abyssia, and I think this would have been a much better choice if I just went fire and shock resistance. I don't really need the shock resistance, but later I will be putting up armies of lead and stuff like that, because with a scales bless where you're going to be getting as many forts as you see we will plan on getting, we will have game-breaking research. It's going to be really ridiculous. So, yeah, this is what I ended up taking. I think this is super suboptimal. Very not good. But the whole point is we're going scales, so the bless doesn't really matter. We have really good scales. Some of the problems here, this is way too many. Like, I could get away with 5 here, or even 4. There's nothing special that comes with my Dominion. I'm not recruiting Sacreds. I'm going to have temples everywhere, so my Dominion's going to be there. And then once I have enough forts, my Dominion strength will actually kick up some. So you could get away with way less, and this would obviously give me the points to get higher Earth. Or higher Earth in nature, something like that. One thing too, the other reason, of course, you get different things on your Pretender is you want to have those magic paths. Having Earth is super important. Like I said, you're going to have ridiculous research, and one of the game-winning spells for you is going to be dropping Army of Lead or Army of Gold on top of 2,000 skeletons, and so you're going to have 2,000 guys with 20 protection. You are not a nation that can do this easily, therefore you need to be able to get Troll Kings, which are going to be your easiest way into Earth, and the best way to do that is to have the path on your Pretender. So getting some Earth on your Pretender is pretty important. There's a lot of things you have. The nation has really bad magic diversity. I mean, you basically have Astral and Death, and then you have a tiny bit of air and water, and yeah, that's not too much. So getting high nature is kind of nice too. You can potentially put up Mother Oak, and then you can do living fortresses underwater. Yeah. So anyway, this is the build I did. I'm going to show you now what I think is a much better build. It's much more versatile, and it's going to give you a lot better stuff. So first, we have an awesome rainbow chassis. Maybe one of the best rainbow chassis. I probably shouldn't say that. It's probably not true. But the rainbow chassis that we have, that not many nations have, is the Divine Emperor. And there's a few things that are cool about him. One is that he's 2 Dominion points, and he's a rainbow, whereas most of the rainbows you only get 1 Dominion point, and he's the same cost. So basically you get a free point of Dominion. Sweet. The second is he has a lot of miscellaneous slots, which, okay, this comes at the expense of not having other important slots like hands and feet. But he has a hat, and what this means actually is most of your astral boosters are all miscellaneous, so you can boost yourself in astral really high with this. So, for example, you can get a crystal coin, the Starshine Cap, Ring of Wizardry, and Ring of Sorcery, and I think there's even another, like the Forbidden Light. There's other, like, Construction 8 astral items you could get too. So potentially from all this you can get +5 Astral on this guy, which means even if you start at Astral 4, you can get all the way up to Astral 9 without empowering. So that's pretty damn cool. Yeah. And that is going to be an important part of our very late game strategy. So we'll pick this chassis. There's a few things also that that we can do, and these I did not mention in my earlier recording, though I'm going to go into now. I'm going to go ahead and just pick the paths that I think I did. And I think this is it. And then I think I did something like this. Oh, I didn't take air. And I think this is only one. Yeah. This, I think... Yeah, I think this is what I did. And then for my bless... Oh, wait. This is not what I did. Okay, we're gonna actually just pull it up real quick. So this is what I did, and I played this in another game I'm in, and I almost feel bad sharing this because I think this is so freaking broken. It's so good. It's so good. I'm just, this second game that you're not going to get to watch. I might put a couple clips up from it later, but I'm stomping all over people so badly. It makes me feel bad. Like I'm about to control all the globals and a bunch of other stuff, and it's not even very far in the game. So, there's a few things we did with this. One, this was just a leftover fire path, and this nation doesn't have access to fire, and we can kind of get screwed by it with Purgatory and other things. Fire nations are kind of good against Sceleria, so this will just be a guarantee we at least get broken into it, and then that combined with blood means we can potentially, especially if we have huge amounts of research, which we will, we can eke our way into fire that way with devils. And we also have the booster, and then with that combined, even just having one path, when we get all the astral gear like Ring of Wizardry, we can get even higher. So anyway, but basically the plan here is Astral 4, Earth 5. That's going to give us Farcaster. Farcaster, I think for me, the jury's still out on this. On one hand, it lets you do Apostasy, which is a national spell that is basically like a charm that you have at starting off with it researched. It's a Holy 3 spell. And so this allows you to cast it farther. It also allows you to cast Life Drain farther, which is pretty cool. Those are both really good spells, and they'll be spells you will have huge amounts of. Yeah, I don't know. At some point in the video, this will be probably many episodes in the future, I'll weigh in with kind of my comments from this other game I'm in terms of whether I think it's worth it. So far, it hasn't really done much, but I'm kind of just getting to the point where I have things like Drain Life Spam coming out and stuff like that. Next, we have Fire and Shock Resistance, which is the shit. Basically, it's going to make your mages sitting in the back row very hard to kill, because other mages won't kill them, and then the only way to get through them, if they're not going to be hit by like battlefield enchantments, will be troops, and troops are not going to easily find their way back here because we've got like 2,000 skeletons between them and our mages. Undead Command, I think this is par for the, and I didn't get this at all in this coming game you're going to be forced to watch. But this makes such a huge difference. Otherwise, you end up basically recruiting more undead than you can efficiently move around, and you end up having to put like 25 undead at a time on priests to move them around, and then your priest can die, and then you're sad. So yeah, you really want Undead Command. Wouldn't you, like with this, we're gonna get plus 80 leadership, undead leadership. That means one priest can lead a party of like 100 undead, and those are basically free for you. So there's no amount of PD. Okay, that's not true. Almost any amount of reasonable amount of PD is gonna die to 100 undead, which means for like a 45 gold priest, you're going to have a raiding party that can kill essentially any province. Now, if there's an army there, of course, it will die. But anyway, that's kind of why you want to get this. And then just troop logistics in general. Yeah. Then we get minor poison resistance, which is going to be nice. Major poison resistance, which is going to be nice. There's other things you could get, but in reality, just double stacking this is pretty good because with Foul Vapors up, this just totally removes the chance that you take any damage from it. And before, like what you'll see with the Pretender I actually took for this game, I got basically poison resistance to deal with Satis, not to cast it myself, but basically, I'm a nation that I realized, like, oh, I can cast it myself. And if I'm casting it myself every battle, it's probably worth to have a lot of it. And then this next one with blood is actually kind of subtle. Your Grand Thaumaturgs have 8 HP, and Strong Vitae is going to give them plus 3 HP, which will push them up to 11. Which, if you cast Personal Regeneration on them, will mean they regenerate 2 HP a second instead of 1. So, in some ways, this is just as effective as having a Regeneration Bless, if you're able to do Personal Regeneration on your slaves. And the way you do Personal Regeneration on slaves is with Shamans. So there's a few indies, which I'll go ahead and just say, are like, they're like hard narcotics for this nation. If you see Shamans or Crystal Amazons, you should drop whatever you're doing and try to take those provinces. Like, almost no matter what the cost, you must have those. Shamans, in my opinion, are the most important. And those are the Astral 1, Nature 1 lizards. But those combined with like this, it's going to be ridiculous. The other thing, obviously, we're looking for is Jade Amazons. They will give us Foul Vapors when we hook them up to the Communion with the Crystal Matrix, which we can forge here. Yeah. So there's a ton you get on this chassis. One is we have pretty damn good scales. Yeah. Okay, so we have pretty damn good scales. You can see we didn't fully max it out. We did leave temperature alone. A lot of people want to mess with temperature too much. We left it alone. It really affects your income a lot. That said, our priests have trouble moving over rivers and such, so taking a little bit of cold actually wouldn't be a horrible idea. But yeah, I'd probably only take 1 cold, but you could do like 1 cold swap with order, and that might be nice. But then it's going to mess up your movement on normal land because it will be snow all the time. Anyway, but this is doing a few things. You have awesome scales. You're going to have great magic path access for late game, and I think this is maybe one of the strongest Dominions builds I've played with, and I'm going to flash up again the actual pretender we're using, not this one I was dreaming of for a later game, or that I actually did use on a later game. So this is it again, reinvigoration, major poison resistance, forest survival, and then a lot of really good scales. Nothing bad here. The only thing that I think was super duper bad was I took too high a Dominion, so I could have sacked this too and then put another couple points in here, or another point in here, like had 1 luck. But it shouldn't affect us too much. Okay, that's it. Hope you tune into the next episode and you watch Initial Expansion. Thank you all. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I'm gonna do this really quick. I keep doing that. Always like in the episode, and then like a minute after, I'm like, oh, I forgot to tell you guys this. I'm just gonna go through real quick and talk about a few of the noteworthy things that you may consider in your own. Okay, the resistances are always interesting. Yeah, the resistances are good. Cold resistance is kind of nice. You can do Grip of Winter. If you take cold resistance on your dudes and you do Rigor Mortis plus Grip of Winter, that can be just devastating depending on who you're fighting. If you want to go ahead and sack one of your cold scales too, so it's a little chilly in all your provinces, that could be good. Especially if you were to take like 4 cold, so you get major cold resistance and Winter's Gift. That would allow your dudes to run across rivers really well, which actually in the game is going to provide you huge amounts of mobility increase. And then the Winter's Gift will mean you have better movement basically all year long, because in the summer you're going to have, or in the normal parts of the year, you're just going to be able to cross the rivers. In the winter, when you would normally be moving slow, you won't. And then it's good shit. Water breathing actually is noteworthy. If you wanted to go really far into water, every single game I play with Satis, and I've played quite a few now, I go underwater and I attack the underwater nation, and without fail I have killed them, though in some games it's harder than others. That said, you can do it with Mountain Kings. You do not need this, but you end up forging a ton of Shambler skins, to go underwater, or Rings of Water Breathing. This would allow you to skip it. I think it's too expensive. I would just forge the items, but yeah, you can do it. Reinvigoration's not bad. Fire and shock resistance are good. In Astral, there's a few things that are noteworthy. Magic resistance is always kind of nice. This Spirit Sight is kind of not bad because you're a nation that does not have dark vision on your mages, and you like casting darkness because your skeletons get way better. So this will allow your mages to have good vision in the night, but you're mostly skele spamming with your mages, so having good vision isn't super important, though if you're doing things like Drain Lifespan, it's pretty high accuracy anyway. I don't think it's really worth it, but potentially it could be. Farcaster is what I got, and it allows you to do some of your non-skelly spam stuff longer range, which is nice. Arcane Finesse is going to allow you to do Apostasy better. And then a lot of the death spells, if you get into death evocations in particular, they have an MR check, and this will help with them. So this is, you could swap this. In fact, if your guys aren't doing well, if they're not casting, if they're basically just skelly spamming off script and they don't do any of the Farcaster stuff like Drain Life, then you might be better off just going with Arcane Finesse. But I don't know. You're also vulnerable to stuff like Earthquake and things like that, so it could be you get Twist Fate to deal with Earthquake, which is not that high. It's only Astral 6, so it's something you could do if you wanted to. Like if there was an Agartha in your game and you knew the Agartha was a really good player, you might get that. But then again, your mages are all Astral. They can just turn 1, cast Twist Fate, and they'll dodge it. So I wouldn't really do that. Undead Command, super good. I don't think anything else super noteworthy up there. Unaging is kind of nice. You get long-lived mages. It potentially also opens up a use case for... Not really. You wouldn't really cast Burden of Time, but you theoretically could. It would be less bad on you if it got cast, if you had Unaging. But your Grand Thaumaturgs are all going to be Old Aged, and it ends up kind of sucking. And this will make them not Old Aged as much. And then your Thaumaturgs, who are the ones you recruit everywhere, usually are not Old Age, but some of them will be. And this will prevent any of them from getting Old Age. So that's kind of nice. But again, I don't know if it's really worth it. Like if they made it 2 magic paths, maybe. I think for 3 nature, it's probably too much. I don't know. Yeah, recuperation doesn't go well with Old Age, and the guys you would want to recuperate in general are Old Age, so you can skip that. Regeneration's really good because you can cast it, and all your Communion Slaves will regenerate, which basically means they, instead of just using Fatigue as a regenerating buffer to cast spells, your HP of all your Communion Slaves will regenerate, and you can basically have them as a big battery to keep spamming out skeletons and other things. So this is something you can take, though I prefer usually to roll the dice and try to find Shamans. And yeah, the Strong Vitae is kind of nice. Blood Bond might be kind of interesting, whereas you have a big mass of Communions mages, but I don't really think so. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know. I probably wouldn't do that. Anyway, those are all the things. Real quick before we go, here's, if you're doing it, do something like this. This is broken as hell. It's so strong. And then this is a nation that does require some finesse, though. I mean, on one hand, you can just plow skeletons into everything, and that's not very much finesse requiring. But good players will defeat that. What good players will struggle against is when you start doing really crazy buffs on top of all your skeletons, because you have tons of crazy stuff going on in your communions, and your guys are immune to a lot of the battlefield wipes. So, yeah. Anyway... Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next episode with Initial Expansion.